What if Naruto was sent into Infinite Avenger verse? So let's start the series. You should have gone for the head. No, it was too late. As Thanos snapped his fingers, the whole world seemed to stop. The Titan had achieved his goal, acquiring all the Infinity Stones and wiping out half of humanity. Thor Odinson watched the power of the stones engulfed everything in bright light. What was believed to have lasted minutes only lasted a few seconds as the light disappeared. Thor stepped back as he saw Thanos smirking with his new weapon still implanted in his chest. What did you do? What did you do? The god screamed as the enemy took a step back, conjured a portal and disappearing into nothingness. The Stormbreaker axe hit the ground with an almighty thud. The sound echoing throughout the valley he and his comrades were in. He stood in silence, trying to contemplate what was going on. Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America, stumbled out from trees where Thanos had beat him, clutching his left side in pain. Where'd he go? He questioned, noticing the deadly silence that now occupied the battlefield. Thor, where'd he go? The god had no words. Steve! The voice of Roger's oldest friend, Bucky Barnes, called out. Turning his head, Roger saw his friend slowly disintegrate and to ashes. He rushed over to where Bucky had been. Only a pile of ashes and a weapon now lay barren. The process had been felt throughout Wakanda, Baku's entire army slowly turning to ashes, the warrior leader standing in horror as his brothers, family, and friends slowly disappeared before his very eyes. The remaining Avengers regrouped together, coming to the realization that Thanos had done what he had set out to do. Wanda, T'Challa, Bucky, Groot, Falcon, all had fallen victim to Thanos' plan. But what about themselves? Why had they been spared? What is this? What the hell is happening? War Machine, Tony Stark's military partner, cried out in anger, gathering around the lifeless corpse that was Vision. Rogers finally came to the conclusion. The Avengers had lost, and there was nothing they could do about it. Oh God! The only words that the former symbol of America could muster from his lips. As Thor began to question what to do, his weapon began to emit a strange blue glow. What the? The axe began to shake violently on the ground, the glow's aura growing larger and larger. Thor, what's going on? Rogers asked his friend. I don't know, Stormbreaker. It's doing something. As he grabbed the weapon from the ground, the blue aura began to envelop and mold around his right arm in the shape of electricity. From out of nowhere, the blue electricity manifested itself around Thor's whole body, producing painful sensations throughout his entire nervous system. Thor, stay with us! War Machine called out. Within seconds, the blue electricity transformed into a giant bolt of lightning, making Thor vanish into thin air as all that could be heard were his screams of pain. Thor! Natasha Romanoff shouted. Not him as well, hadn't they had lost enough? Vanishing into the air, the Asgardian found himself flying through what appeared to a blackened sky, similar to the Bifrost from his old world. Impossible. There's no one left alive to summon such a thing. The speed he was traveling at, he couldn't make out what he was heading into. Eventually, he landed headfirst smack into the ground with a massive thud. The God of Thunder awoke, his eyes slowly adjusting to the light around him. The sound of chirping birds and a windy breeze greeted his sense of hearing as the rest of his senses began slowly coming back to him. He shifted his weight, hoping to sit up, but was welcomed with a sharp pain entering his right arm. Looking closer, the skin on his arm was torn in multiple places, blood trickling down his forearm and wrist into his hand. As he looked around, he tried to make sense of his surroundings. Nothing but a grass verge surrounded by a forest. Where am I? What happened to the others? He muttered, his gaze shifting left and right. Had anyone else made it with him, or were they dead? Rogers? He called out. No response except the rustling of the trees. Banner? Nothing again. Natasha? Rabbit? Tree? Still, no one responded to him. Did Thanos do this? The stones? With the pain still shooting through his arm, he managed to get to his feet. His ears were infiltrated with the sounds of people and footsteps. Surely that was a sign of life to showcase that someone could explain what was going on here. He picked up his axe, noticing it was emitting the same weird bluish glow around the blade as before. What is this aura? I landed a clean blow. Then he remembered the last words Thanos had said to him. But I didn't go for the head. Gripping the weapon tighter, he scowled in anger. Next time, I'm not going to make the same mistake. Thor walked through the trees, determined to locate the source of the noise. paying attention to his injuries. How could that have happened? Was it from clashing with Thanos? Had the sheer velocity of power from the stones caused additional damage to him? How was that even possible? So many questions were racing through his mind at this moment, but right now, all he cared about was finding someone or something to help him get out of this. He eventually came to a clearing, and upon that was a pathway. Looking ahead, the pathway led directly to the site of a large stone archway with a pair of green double doors. The archway was decorated with a strange symbol that he had never seen before, a spiral shape turning out into what looked like an arrow. Strange. It looks like some kind of village. He noted as he carried on walking towards the location that had appeared before him. Getting closer, Thor noticed two figures standing by the entrance of the archway. The first was a male with dark eyes and brown spiky hair covering his right eye. The second was also male, with long black spiky hair with a strip of bandage going across the bridge of his nose. Both of them were wearing blue overalls coupled with green flak jackets and a strange bandana with a metal plate across their foreheads. Thor noticed they resembled the military officers that Steve Rogers had been a part of back home. Perhaps they could be of assistance to him. He stumbled a bit further on ahead, before collapsing on his knees from the pain his injury gave him. Upon seeing this, the two men rushed over to him. "Hey pal, are you alright? What happened to you?" the brown-haired one asked, noticing the amount of blood that now covered the god's arm. Breathing heavily, Thor just about mustered his words. "Please. I need a healer. A doctor, anyone to help." The dark-haired one looked puzzled, noticing the huge axe he was carrying. "Who are you? And what is that weapon you're wielding? I mean you no harm." The injured man continued, his voice cracked by the pain of his injuries. "I woke up not from far here. Please, I need a healer." Nodding, the dark-haired one turned to his friend, Izumo. "Go and tell the Hokage of this man's arrival and let her know that he needs a medic now." "Right, Kotetsu." The brown-haired one disappeared in a puff of smoke. Thor's reaction was one of bewilderment. Disappearing into thin air? Is that the effect of magic? Or something the wizard back home would do? The pain grew worse, as his vision began to blur slightly. "Don't worry, we'll get you to someone as soon as possible. Hang in there." As Thor was about to answer, his aura noticed the presence of three more strangers. "Great, more trouble," he muttered as the strangers entered his line of sight. The first, a tall man with silver hair wearing a similar uniform to the previous two, with his face covered and the bandana going across his eye. The second, a boy with blonde spiky hair, blue eyes, strange markings on his face, wearing an orange and black jacket and pants. The final, a female with pink hair, green eyes wearing a red top, knee-high boots, a pink apron skirt with black shorts underneath, and pink elbow protectors. "Kotetsu-san, what's going on? Who is this man?" the silver-haired one asked, observing the situation. "I don't know, but he's been beaten pretty badly. Have you informed Tsunade-sama?" the pink-haired one added. "Yes, would you be able to take him with you to the hospital?" Just then Thor collapsed completely, his whole body feeling like it was on fire. "Damn it, what is going on with me? Thanos, what did you do?" "Oh crap!" the blonde exclaimed loudly. "We better get him up. Steady, Naruto, he might be fragile. He's built like a tank. I'm sure he'll be fine." Taking an arm and slinging him over his neck, Naruto lifted him off the ground. "Kakashi-sensei?" Noticing that the injured man's body was quite heavy, Naruto gestured his sensei's help to him. The god of thunder noticed the effort these strangers were making to help him. "Thank you, orange child," he muttered under his breath, noticing how generous these strangers were treating him. The silver-haired man nodded, taking the god's other arm around his neck, lifting him to his feet. They began walking inwards of the village. "Sakura, bring that weapon of his with you. I don't know why, but it's emitting a strange power, and it could be dangerous." The pink-haired girl nodded. As she picked it up, Thor growled in response to her actions. "Be careful with that, child. That weapon is something no mortal." "Ugh!" He began to cough up blood violently. His vision began blurring out, and his whole body felt heavier than before. "We'd better hurry," Kakashi shouted. As the group headed towards the hospital, Sakura noticed the weapon in her hand. The axe had a substantial amount of weight to it, but was more interesting was the glow emitting from around the blade of the axe. At the hospital, the group managed to get him to an empty room and onto a bed. As Kakashi and Naruto laid him down, Sakura propped the axe down next to the bed. "Let me check his vitals and determine the source of that injury," she exclaimed, tightening her hair back and putting on some gloves. As the pink-haired girl began checking him, the god of thunder was slowly fading in and out of consciousness. These people, who are they? He thought as he closed his eyes one last time to rest. Sakura began looking over his bloodied arm. This is weird, there's no sign of cuts or a stab. It looks like the skin was forcefully ripped apart from an external source. His forearm muscles are damaged, and the nerve endings are pretty much torn asunder. This looks like the work of a forbidden jutsu. The kind that requires a blood sacrifice, but there are no chakra traces of any kind, unless he's using some other kind of power. So bizarre. She managed to unclip his black armor and cape away from his body. Upon inspection of his chest, she noticed there was no sign of any scarring, but couldn't help her cheeks tinge pink at the sight of the god's well-defined figure. Kakashi looked over as she began healing him with her chakra. Sakura, is everything alright? Sakura nodded, biting her lip. Yeah, he'll be fine, it's just this injury. It's quite horrific. I'm also assuming that his internal organs might be damaged due to the vomiting of blood. Aside from that, I'm sensing a loss of fatigue. Where exactly is he from? Maybe he's one of those legendary warriors you hear about in those tales of legend? Naruto queried, his imagination running wild. He sort of looks like it with the cape and all. He looked over at the man's weapon. And the axe? I've never seen any shinobi tool that looks like this. He has to be something like that. Naruto, that's a little far-fetched, even for you, his teammate replied, focusing on her work. I'm just saying it could be possible. A few moments passed, and Sakura's healing jutsu was complete. She finished up by wrapping bandages all along his arm. Whatever caused this man such a devastating injury? Part of her really didn't want to find out. He just needs rest now. In his condition, there's no way he could go back to where he came from, not at least for another few days. The silver-haired man pondered in thought as he looked upon Sakura's patient. That's the question. Where did he come from? His outfit is nothing like I've ever seen. Not a shinobi, that's for sure. Probably some kind of mercenary. The group of three sat together trying to piece together the difficult puzzle that lay before them. Inside the resting mind of Thor, the god had entered his own mind palace of sorts, trying to piece together how he had got here. The last thing he recalled before all this was striking Thanos in the chest after the former had gathered all the stones in his gauntlet. After exacting his vengeance on him for the lives of his people and his brother Loki, he had pushed the axe deeper into the wound, thinking he had won. He hadn't realized that he had aimed for the wrong target. Thanos gained the upper hand and snapped his fingers. Within seconds, the Mad Titan's plan had come to fruition. People all around him started to disappear, fading to dust. There was nothing he could do to stop it. But why did the stones bring me here of all places? There must be a reason why, he told himself. Oh, dear brother, as per usual, you seem to not be using that head of yours. Quite amusing, I have to say. An icy voice spoke within the confines of his mind. Thor turned round to see a figure, Loki. There stood Thor's brother, beaten, bloody and bruised with the color drained from his face. The exact same look he had had before Thanos killed him. The Asgardian gasped in horror. No, this is not possible. You're dead. I watched you die. Loki smirked. Did you now? Or was it an illusion like always? Or maybe I'm just a memory in this mind palace of yours? He gloated as he walked closer to his brother, admiring the brief snapshots of scenes being played out from Thor's lifeline. So many memories. But I wonder where my death comes in terms of importance. Judging by recent events, I'd say very high on your list. What is this place? Why was I sent here? Do you know anything about this? Thor wanted answers, and he was sick of Loki's constant games, even when he was alive. The dark-haired brother shook his head. Questions, questions. I can see why you were always the hot-headed one. He placed his hand on his brother's shoulder, much to his disgust. Tell you what, I'll let you on a little secret. Maybe this is all an illusion. Maybe you are just dreaming, and you don't know when to wake up. He tightened the grip, causing Thor to smack his hand away. Or perhaps you should ask those people outside of your head? I have a feeling that blonde one has something to do with this. The blonde boy who saved my life? What could he have to do with all this? The blonde brother thought. Could these strangers hold a secret that he was yet to uncover? Suddenly, Loki pulled out one of his knives and stabbed his brother straight in the stomach, causing Thor to roar in pain. I've got one more theory. Your weak brother, always have been. His grin grew wider as he twisted the knife deeper. Now, I grow bored of this little charade. It's time for you to wake up and decide your fate. He laughed evilly. No! I won't let you do this to me, Loki. I will come back and I will make sure Thanos is dead once and for all. He screamed as he felt his whole body fall back into the darkness. He kept falling, hoping this nightmare would end. He shut his eyes, wanting to end this once and for all. Thor opened his eyes again. His body shot up in discomfort, breathing heavily. Hey, take it easy, you're in no condition to move. A soft voice enveloped his ears. He turned to see the faces of the 3 people who had saved his life. Who are you people? Thor looked around the room he was in, a hospital that reminded him of the first time he had come to Earth after Jane Foster had knocked him over with her car. Not the most pleasant of memories to him. This time, it was a lot different. There were no high-tech devices, no blinding lights, no multiple doctors, just him, the bed, a bedside table and an open window. Something about this world was familiar, yet very different at the same time. He couldn't put his finger on it. His eyes were drawn to his now bandaged arm, and then his sight made contact with the young girl with pink hair and emerald eyes. Did you do this? He gestured his injury up, not before adding an ouch sound in response to moving it. The girl nodded. Yes, please try not to move too much. Your arm was pretty much destroyed. You'll need a few days to rest. Thor pulled a face of astonishment. How was a girl this young able to perform such a task? How long have I been out for? He wondered after waking up from that horror he had escaped from. A couple of hours. But with an injury like that and how much blood you lost, I expected you to be out cold for at least a few days. You must have a healing factor that I don't know about. Thor himself was questioning how he was still alive after everything that had happened. That attack with the stones must have done something to his body. But what? She placed her arm out in front of him. Oh, I'm Hirano Sakura, nice to meet you. Thor, my name is Thor, son of Odin, he replied, shaking her hand with his good arm. He glanced to the other figures that were sat next to her. And you too are? The silver-haired man stood up and shook his hand. My name is Hotaki Kakashi, pleased to meet you, Odin-san. Thor responded with a look of confusion. No, my name is Thor. But is Odin not your last name? Forgive me, since you're a stranger I was only doing the polite thing by not using your first name. The god of thunder looked puzzled at the man's bizarre usage of speech. Suddenly he remembered something. A while ago, he had borrowed a book from Tony Stark's library on different cultures. The book was all about the culture in Eastern countries such as China, Japan, and the Philippines and how one would address people by different statuses. One of the things that had been covered was the usage of people's names and how they were spoken. In Japanese, it was customary to write the last name first, then the given name afterwards. In addition, there was a usage of honorifics that was similar to how the English language worked, that being the usage of san, chan, kun, and sama to address individuals as Mr., Mistress, and Master. So, are these people speaking a language from the East? My all-speech must be working its magic then. I see, Thor continued. I didn't know that I arrived in a country that spoke that way. Thank you, Kakashi-san? He hoped that he had worked out the correct speaking manner, hoping not to offend. And I'm Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet ya. The blonde boy leaned forward with a big smile. Shaking his hand, the god nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you. As much as these introductions are quaint, would one of you please tell me where I am? Is this one of Midgard's countries that I wasn't aware of? Sakura and Kakashi looked at each other in confusion. Midgard? No, this is the Konohagakure, also known as the Hidden Leaf Village, stationed with the Land of Fire. The country itself is part of a greater continent that makes up the 5 shinobi nations, the pink-haired girl spoke. Village? Shinobi? Judging from your dialect, I thought this was Japan. What's Japan? Naruto asked, dumbfounded. Thor breathed heavily. Well, it looks like I'm not on Earth, it seems. Wait, this is Earth. Are you saying you're from another world then? Kakashi's curiosity grew more and more. The Asgardian looked at them with a sign of discontent. This was replaying exactly like the first time he had banished to Earth all those years ago. This time, though, there was no Jane Foster or Eric Selvig to help him out. Perhaps these people might know a way to get him home. He just wasn't too sure about trusting them after everything else he had just been through. You're from another planet then? The blonde boy asked. So does that make you an alien then? Naruto, don't be so rude. Sakura replied, scolding him. I'm from a place called Asgard, home of gods and mystical beasts. I was originally banished to Earth almost a decade ago by my father for my brash and egotistical behavior. I was stripped of my power and pride, but it turned out to be a learning experience. I met people like yourselves, one of them a woman. He paused as he remembered Jane. Had she now been one of the millions of people wiped out by Thanos? He lowered his eyes in sadness. But she taught me the wonders of human life, and not to take life for granted. It was from her I decided to stay to watch over the Earth as its protector. Hold on, Sakura stopped him, amazed by his story. You said your home was made up of gods. Her mouth slowly opened and closed as she came to the realization of who or what she had been talking to. So you're a god? That is correct. I am known as the god of thunder, due to my power to control lightning. His response caused three in the room to stand there with their jaws wide open. They were standing in front of a literal deity. Thunder? So he must have a fighting style that uses that element. How interesting. Kakashi thought, narrowing his uncovered eye. But a god? The only ones I've seen are the ones in form of statues. Man, this guy must be really strong. Naruto shook slightly in fear. I just hope I don't get on his bad side. Sakura lowered her eyes as she brought a closed fist up to her lips. So that's why his anatomy looked strange when I healed him. No chakra traces of all, but god power? How does that even work? Anyhow, Thor continued his story. A few months later, I met my current friends, Tony Stark, a billionaire inventor with a high-powered techno suit, Steve Rogers, an old war veteran who hadn't aged a day in decades but possessed a number of extraordinary abilities, Natasha, a secret agent with specializing in what they call the Black Ops side of the war, Clint, an archer who was part of the same team as Natasha. Finally there was Banner, a scientist who transforms into a giant known as the Hulk whenever his anger overpowers him. A transformation by anger? It sounds like me when the demon fox takes control when I lose my emotions. Naruto remembered when he had met Orochimaru on the Tenchi Bridge and how he had lost all train of thought because he had been so angry at how the snake Sannin had manipulated and changed Sasuke into one of his own. It wasn't the most pleasant of meetings, I assure you. We argued and bickered, but we had to band together to stop my brother Loki. He had amassed an army hell-bent on destroying the world and ruling it as his own. It was a long battle, but we had managed to defeat him. That, however, was the only start of my journey there. You fought against your own brother? Naruto asked. Unfortunately so, Orange won. His mind had been poisoned by the obsession of power, but I later found out it had been caused by something else. The fox boy was drawing comparison to his oldest friend, Uchiha Sasuke, another individual who had been corrupted by his obsession with power. So he's like me, he lost a brother to something else entirely. There was a brief moment of silence in the room. Apart from the creaking of the bed Thor was on, the three ninja were trying to process everything that they had just been told. As much as I'd like to carry on this story, I have no time, Thor said abruptly. I have to find a way to get back home. Does this village have a king? A leader of some kind that I can speak to? Sakura looked up at him. We have the Hokage. The what? The Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village. They have bestowed that title after many years of service, hard work, and dedication to protecting the people of this nation. The Asgardian grew curious. Very well, please take me to them. Thor-san, the pink-haired Kunoichi spoke worriedly. You're in no condition to be going anywhere. I'd advise you to rest. Your right arm is practically destroyed and who knows how much damage there is to your internal organs. Please, he answered with desperation in his voice. I'll be fine. I need some answers, Sakura. He hesitated with the pronunciation. Sakura looked at him, and then at her sensei, who gave a slight nod of approval. Okay, we'll take you to Tsunade-sama. But please come back to rest up after. Naruto, still having a lot of questions he wanted to ask him, looked over at the weapon they had bought with them. Thor, what's with the axe? It's quite unusual. He gestured to the axe next to the bed. This? The god spoke. This is Stormbreaker, a weapon forged by the dwarves of Nidavellir, one of the 9 realms. Its power is unmatched by any other. The young blonde clicked his tongue in annoyance. Dwarves? You mean those little short guys you hear of in fairy tales? They made this thing. First the talk of gods and now dwarves? What kind of world did Thor belong to? The god stood up slowly stretching his good shoulder while carefully keeping his bandaged arm downward. It's a long story. But yes, these weren't any normal dwarves though. Sorry. Do you mind if I put my armor back on? With a collection of nods, the three ninjas stepped out of the room for a moment, while Thor adjusted himself to his new surrounding. So guys, what do you think? This guy is cool, Naruto exclaimed in excitement. A very strange individual, I must say. A god, though? It just doesn't seem possible, Kakashi replied, his open eye glancing back towards the door. Quite the story, though. He had to fight his own brother, won a battle, and now he's been separated from his friends. Turning to his student, he carried on, Sakura, did you notice any strange anomalies when you healed him? I didn't detect any chakra reserves or anything, but judging by how he's moving now, his injury looks like it could heal a lot faster than I originally anticipated. He could have a secret power like mine, Naruto added, folding his arms. Remember how the Kyuubi heals my injuries as soon as I get attacked? My guess is something like that. Maybe, Kakashi added, let's just take him to the Hokage and see what she says about him. Thor stepped out of the room, fully clothed with his weapon in his left hand. He had managed to put his injured arm into a sling bandage that had been left on the bedside table. Let us make haste then. The group headed towards the exit of the hospital and out into the village. Stepping out into the street, he was greeted by his senses being engulfed with bright colors, unique smells, and distinctive sounds. People were out and about, children meeting up with their friends, street vendors showcasing a variety of different foods. It reminded him of the peaceful days back on Asgard. Before everything else that had taken place in the last several years, it was something he had missed dearly. Not just on Asgard, but also with his fellow Avengers. Before the whole incident with Ultron, they had all spent some quality time together. Thor, learning about what the Earth had to offer in ways of culture and ideals, enjoyed the time he had with Stark, Rogers, Natasha, Clint, and Banner. They had become his second family, with Nick Fury acting like a guardian of sorts for all of them. He missed them more than he cared to say, and was wondering what was going on with them right this second. Thor, is something the matter? Naruto asked the god, who had become lost in thought. He looked back at the boy. It said nothing, he whispered, his expression turning into one of sadness. The trio of ninja with Thor entered a large cone-shaped structure with strange writing upon the entrance. Inside, they had reached the top floor and entered a room whereupon sat a blonde pigtailed woman with a green jacket upon a gray outfit. What stood out though was the woman's unusual large bust. Standing next to the desk was a dark-haired woman with a slender build, onyx eyes, wearing a black kimono. Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi, is this stranger the one that I was informed about? The blonde woman asked, her gaze directed to the presence of the strange man. All three nodded. Yes, Bachan, he was pretty roughed up when we found him, Naruto commented. He asked to speak to a leader, so we brought him here. Thor said nothing while he looked on at the woman ahead of him. Does a woman lead these people? Interesting. He took a few paces forward and began speaking. Are you the leader of these people? That would be me. My name is Tsunade, the fifth Hokage of this village, the blonde woman replied with her hands together. This is my assistant, Shizen, she added, gesturing to the person on her left. The dark-haired woman bowed in response. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Please, in your own time, I would like to hear your story and why you are here. The man took a deep breath and sighed before beginning. My name is Thor Odinson. I was brought here by unknown means. I believe that the enemy I was fighting used some kind of power to trap me in this dimension away from my world. Tsunade's eyes widened. She had heard about beings traveling between dimensions, but it was heard that such arts of ninjutsu were forbidden, even to the strongest ninja that ever existed. Thor, is it? You came here from another world. What happened just before you arrived? She was curious to know more about what this man had to say and what he was capable of. My friends and I were in a war. A being from another planet called Thanos had gathered all 6 of the Infinity Stones, powerful items that have the ability to manipulate space, time, and energy. My comrades, Stark and Rogers, had formed this group known as the Avengers to try and stop him, but unfortunately, we had failed in our mission. Thanos succeeded and would eventually wipe out half of the world's population. I attacked him, but he still managed to achieve his goal. As soon as he disappeared, something must have happened with the stones, as I felt mystical energy somehow drag me into a weird lightning bolt and teleport me away. The next thing I know, I wake up here, outside on a grass verge, bleeding out. The Hokage, her assistant, and Team 7 looked at each other, trying to work out if this man's story was true, and if there was more than meets the eye. This Thanos you speak of, is he some kind of demon? Shizen asked, marveled at the stranger's fascinating tale. He is what is known as a Titan, a race of beings hell-bent on destruction, but with the power he wields, demon doesn't even begin to describe it. And these stones, they're basically a form of magic? Kakashi questioned, wanting to know more about these mystical items that had been mentioned. The Infinity Stones are more than just magic, masked man, they are the balance to the whole universe, and what helps create life in the first place. If you remove one of the stones from the established order, you create chaos and disorder. And your friends, where are they now? Naruto continued. Thor looked down at his bandaged, blood-stained arm with a gruff of discontent. Back on my homeworld, Orange One. I do not know how much time has passed since I entered here, but I must get back to my own world. He raised his head, stepping closer to Tsunade. Please, you must help me, every moment I'm gone. Thanos has probably conducted another plan to wipe out the rest of the world. This world of yours. Sakura interjected, you say it's called Earth, but this planet we're on right here is called Earth as well. I had only read a few pages of multiple Earths, but I didn't think much of it. Sakura-chan, what do you mean? The younger blonde didn't know much about astronomy or science, so this piqued his interest. It's called the multiverse concept. Multiple dimensions and timelines that can exist at once. I only thought this was fiction, but if what you're saying is true, Thor Odinson, then it goes to show there's more out there than we originally believed. Everyone in the room went quiet for a brief moment. Multiple dimensions were possible? Whatever it is, Thor spoke up, breaking the silence. Is there a way you can get me back home? Tsunade cleared her throat. I will have a look at our archives and see if there is anything I can find out about dimensions and multiverses. However, this will take a few days, probably a week, so we can be absolutely sure of what we are dealing with. In the meantime, Thor Odinson, you may stay with us in the village while you recover. Turning to her fellow ninja, she added, Naruto, Sakura, can you make sure that our guest is looked after at all times? Naruto chuckled with a thumbs up. You can count on us, Oba-chan. Sakura smiled. Of course, Tsunade-sama. Thor, happy with the answer he had received, bowed in response. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your service and kindness will be remembered from this day. The fifth was taken aback by the way he had addressed her. Majesty? She replied with a deep flush of red on her face. Please, I'm not worthy of such a title. Hokage-sama is fine. Nonsense. You are the closest thing to a queen here, so it is only right I use such a befitting title, Thor replied with a friendly smirk. Shizen, on the other hand, was stood there with her mouth gaping open. Who is this man? I'm guessing where he comes from. He must be part of some royal family to use such words. Tsunade-sama has probably never been praised this much. I'm very flattered, Thor, Tsunade said, cheeks still red from praise. She reached over for a bottle of sake from under her desk before addressing the whole room. You are all dismissed. Have a nice day. As the group left the room, the Hokage and her assistant were left in surprise at the meeting they had just witnessed. Tsunade-sama, Shizen spoke, noting her superior pouring a glass of alcohol. This man has a very powerful aura about him. It's nothing I've ever felt like before. Do you think the others will be all right? As the fifth sipped her glass, she looked out the window. I believe so. There's more to him than meets the eye. But I have a feeling that Naruto and Sakura know what they're doing. Turning to Shizen, she grinned widely. What do you think of that title then, Her Royal Majesty, Tsunade of the Leaf, has a nice ring to it, wouldn't you say? Shizen's eye twitched. Tsunade-sama, please, even for you that's a bit egocentric, she replied half-heartedly. Stepping outside the building, the trio of Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi was working out what to do next. Guys, I hate to do this, but I must be off, Kakashi said. The two younger ninja looked surprised. What? You're off already? Sakura queried. Yes, there's some business I have to take care of with some of the other Jonin. He turned to the god. Thor, these two will do their utmost best to look after you. I will see you again shortly. Thor nodded, reaching his hand out to shake Kakashi's. Thank you for your help, Kakashi, see you soon. With that, the masked ninja disappeared with a puff of smoke. Hey Thor, you must be hungry. Can I suggest a place to eat? Naruto spoke out, feeling his own stomach beginning to rumble. It's getting late in the day and I'm quite peckish. I was about to ask about some kind of food around here. Please, take me somewhere with some interesting delights, the Asgardian replied. Ichiraku's then. Sakura gestured with her hands on her hips, annoyed with her friend's response. Geez, Naruto. Isn't there a day where you don't think about ramen? Hey, if it's good enough for me, I'm sure it'll be good enough for a god of thunder, Sakura-chan. The blonde fist pumped the air in excitement. Very well, lead the way forward, Orange One, pink-haired healer. As they began walking down the street, Naruto and Sakura sweat dropped at the nicknames. When is he going to drop the weird nicknames for us? The trio of Naruto, Sakura, and Thor arrived at Ichiraku's promptly with food on their minds. The owner, Tucci, and his daughter Ayam were surprised to see another friendly face with the two ninja. Afternoon, Naruto, my boy. Tucci greeted with a warm smile. And to you as well, Sakura. How are you both keeping? Very well, Tucci-san, and yourself? The kunoichi replied, taking a seat for herself. Most excellent, thank you for asking. The old man noticed the appearance of the strange man with the sling on his arm. And who might you be, my good man? The god smiled and shook his hand with Tucci. Thor Odinson. And can I say it is a pleasure to eat here at your fine establishment? The compliment took Tucci off guard for a split second. Not many people had been so generous before to praise him on his business. The pleasure is all mine, good sir. What can I delight you in trying? Turning back to the younger blonde, I assume you'll have 2 bowls of your usual, Naruto? The blonde nodded. You know it, old man. I'll have the barbecue chicken, please, Sakura said. And for you, Thor? The Asgardian looked at the menu with a puzzled look. Where I come from, I don't think I've had a dish like this before. I've had normal spaghetti at the recommendation of my friends, but this ramen? Never had any before. Tucci replied with a stale look. My good man. You've never tried ramen before? I make the greatest in the whole village, filled with love and care in every bowl. Let me start you off with our most popular dish, the miso pork. Please, make yourself comfortable. Thor grinned as Tucci and his daughter began the preparation of the food. Thank you. As the three sat together, Naruto was intrigued at what the god had said beforehand, primarily about the stones. Hey Thor, what was that earlier you said, something about stones? How do they work? Are they like a talisman? The stones, Thor began, are what make up the universe that I come from. They were originally the remnants of 6 cosmic entities that existed at the beginning of the universe, and then scattered across different parts of the universe itself. Each of the stones consists of different power, space, the ability to manipulate time and space, mind, the power to gain infinite knowledge or use it as a weapon to control the minds of others, reality, the power to manipulate and bend reality to whatever you see fit, power, which has the ability to destroy entire civilizations in an instance, time, where you can manipulate time forwards or backward, and finally the Soul Stone, which I would consider this one to be the most dangerous of them all. How is that? Sakura questioned. With the Soul Stone, you can literally escape death, but there's an awful price to pay. Someone must be sacrificed in order for you to live. Sakura gasped with a horrific look on her face. That's horrible. Who would even think of doing something that? I know someone, Naruto added quietly. It sounds like the same formula for achieving the Manjikyu Sharingan. Naruto reminded himself of the battle he had previously overcome with his former friend. It sounded like Sasuke wanted to do the same thing when we fought all those years ago at the Valley of the End. The kunoichi's head fell in sadness. Had Sasuke really tried to kill Naruto all those years ago just to obtain that power? It looked like he had tried the same thing again a few weeks ago, when they had encountered him at Orochimaru's hideout. She remembered the look that Sasuke had in his eyes. It was so cold, ruthless, and filled with nothing but hatred. So, all these stones, they can work independently of each other then? She asked, the nature of the stones keeping her interest. Yes, each stone on its own is powerful enough, especially the Mind Stone. My brother Loki used it to brainwash people on Earth during his invasion. It was then used later on to help create a being known as the Vision. He was a powerful Avenger, but... He paused, remembering the sight of seeing Vision's lifeless body on the ground after the climatic fight with Thanos. The stone had been ripped out his head. He gave up his life, trying to protect us. I'm sorry for your loss, the Pinkette spoke wretchedly. Do you think you might be able to revive him based on what you know about the stones? Possibly, but I'm not sure. Thor looked down in anguish. What was going on with the other Avengers right now was the thought that occupied his mind. Sakura turned and leaned into Naruto. Hey Naruto, I'm thinking, maybe we should keep Thor's identity quiet for now. I think if it got out, it'd be quite dangerous. She believed if word got out that they were guarding a literal god in the village, who knows who could target them. Naruto nodded in agreement. You're right, Sakura-chan. As the trio waited for their food, Sakura couldn't help her vision being drawn towards her teammate. The last few weeks had been difficult to say the least. The mission to capture Orochimaru and interrogate him had been failure. Naruto had lost it, transforming him into a smaller version of the nine-tailed fox. An image that was still scarred in the back of her mind, the horror that he had been possessed and feared that he would never return to what he once was. She had been caught in the fight, with a reminder of 3 faint claw marks that now lay marked on her upper arm. How could she have let that happen to him? She had always cared for Naruto, despite the rocky beginning they shared, as a teammate and a friend. Now though, after everything that had transpired in her life, she had been having this feeling that she couldn't quite make out. Was it wrong to feel this way towards him? Sakura, are you feeling okay? Thor spoke out, bringing her out of her thoughts. She blinked, her face forming a small smile. Oh yeah, I'm okay. Back at her office, Tsunade had begun a small bit of research into the concept of dimension hopping. Going through a few scrolls, she was determined to find an answer to all of this. Her reading was interrupted by a knock on her door. Enter. The door opened, and in stepped Jiraiya, the famous Toad Sage. Good day, Tsunade. How are things? He spoke nonchalantly. What brings you here, Jiraiya? She replied with a short smile. I thought you were out on some reconnaissance? Anything useful? The Sannin stopped a few feet ahead of her. Yes, but I thought I'd give you some other information I found. A bizarre anomaly in the weather. The Hokage put down her papers for a moment. Do tell. It's something I've never seen before. Several hours ago, round about lunchtime, I noticed a strange pattern in the weather outside the village, heading towards the Valley of the End. It was something I could only describe as lightning, but not the normal kind. This lightning happened with not a cloud in the sky, no rain, nothing. His expression grew more concerned. Was this the work of a weather manipulation jutsu? She asked with intrigue. It doesn't look like it. The lightning wasn't what I would call traditional. It looked more like a tidal wave covering the sky for a brief second, and it was blue. Unless there's a village or town nearby that knows anything about weather manipulation, you can count this out being the work of an enemy. Tsunade contemplated for a moment. Could this strange pattern in the weather be related to the arrival of the strange man who had arrived earlier on? Or could this be the work of something else? Jiraiya, she began, keep an eye out for me if you see or hear anything else. It doesn't sound like much, but if it happens again, I'd like to see it for myself. The Sannin nodded. Very well, if you want me, I'll be at the bar. He reached into his robes and pulled out a document. Here's what I found out recently. It seems Naruto's little incident at the Tenchi Bridge didn't go unnoticed. The village representatives want us to forfeit the bill for the damages done to that bridge. Aside from that, a few of the locals nearby had some information regarding what looked like activity by the Akatsuki. Let me know what you think. Glancing at the document on her desk, she bit her lip. Damn it, Naruto. You just had to lose it, didn't you? Thank the Lord I sent Yamato with you, otherwise we could be facing even more trouble right now. Thank you, Jiraiya. The white-haired man turned away and headed out of her office. Looking back at her paperwork, the Godame rubbed her forehead with anguish. If Naruto hadn't been a concern beforehand, it was now working out how interdimensional travel worked. That and being tossed the hefty damage report for the now destroyed Tenchi Bridge. Today was not her day.